Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing just great out there. Let's continue our specialized reporting module, and today we are going to talk about crime reporting. As we discussed earlier, that in specialized reporting, crime reporting is very important genre or very important beat. In all television channels, there are crime reporters and they pay special attention to crime beat. So let's learn what crime reporting is and how it is done. So covering crime events is a very meticulous and a difficult job. So for that purpose, you need to have certain kind of skills. Those certain kind of skills come with the time, I would say, but there are certain skills and there are certain techniques that you can learn in the classroom and then practice those techniques when you are in the field. So one of the major problem when you are reporting crimes, because when you reach at a crime scene, crime events are already happened. So usually they are over. So by the time you learn about a robbery or a murder, probably robbers or murderers have fled, and the victims will be in the hospital answering police questions or in a mortuary, while the police themselves will already have started their investigations. So there isn't much left for you to investigate. But for that purpose, you need to be like a policeman, because most of the crime reporters, we compare them with police, that they have that specialized instinct to investigate crime. And sometimes crime reporters are so experienced in their field, uh, police get help from them as well. So some personal qualities, you need to have a lively mind, so you can think of ways around any problems you may come across in the reporting. The important thing is that you need to be sympathetic to draw answers out of people who may upset about the crime. Look, when you are in a situation where something bad happened, so you do not need to ask tough questions. You need to be sympathetic with the family of the victims, or if the victim is available to talk to you. Again, a suspicious mind can lead you to many answers. So you need to be suspicious of what you are told or what you hear from the victim or the relatives of the victims. The police and witnesses may not intend to mislead you, but because something bad happened over there, victims and witnesses are often in a state of shock. So most of the time they are unclear about what actually happened. Sometimes probably they have forgotten what actually happened and how it happened. So sometimes initial reports or initial interviews are not sufficient. You need to talk to them after some time. To limit the risk of inaccuracy, try to get information from as many sources as possible. Let's say there is a murder. Obviously, you need to talk to the police. You need to look into the forensics. You need to look into the FIR. You need to talk to the relatives of the victims. You need to talk to neighbors as well, probably bystanders or people who are passing through that area. So with more important or complicated stories, use a variety of sources, because you cannot depend on a single source. You may want to start with the police report to establish that a crime really happened, but that police report is not sufficient. Then go to question the officer dealing with the specific case. Then talk to the neighbors as well. Talk to the relatives of the victims. Talk to the uh, people who are passing by. All right. So try to interview any victim for a first-hand account of what happened and what was stolen or what actually happened. So first-hand accounts are very important. If the victim is not available, try relatives or friend. Interview any witness, but be aware that they will not usually be trained to observe things as cruelty accurately as police or the journalist. So visit the scene of the crime. That is single important thing, because visiting crime scene will actually give you minute details about what actually happened, and you can add those important details to your story. Probably those minute details are not added in police report, or probably you cannot get an idea of those minute details on a phone call. So you need to visit crime scene. So with big or unusual crimes, you will need to provide some background to help your readers or listeners to understand what actually happened and what the consequences of a crime might be. So backgrounders are very important. Once you have gathered all the information, you should sort out it carefully. Double check any doubtful or conflicting information where necessary, and it happens only when you interview a lot of people. All right, when they repeat the information, you get to know that this information came to you many times, and probably this is true. So identify those facts with a reliable um, which are reliable and those which are not reliable. So police reports are usually quite accurate. They are seldom entirely reliable, so you may have to cross-check some of what they say. It is a usual practice because you always cross-check police reports. Some techniques. So in practical terms, there are many things. There are many things you can do to make your job as a crime reporter easier and more interesting. So what they are, number one is making and keeping contacts. As I told you many times that if you want to become a reporter, you need to make contacts and you need to refresh your contacts and you need to keep your contacts. So it is your task to establish good contacts, people who will tell you about events as soon as they happen. So although your most reliable contacts may be on duty police officers such as the police commander or duty officer, do not limit yourself to these only. You can even talk to a constable or even a person who is writing reports in a police station. Sometimes a person that is not relevant to your relevant to your case, but he's working in a police station, he can give you some inside information. Get to know other sources within the police force. That is very important. And good confidential sources can often give you an off the record tip. This is very much important. Sometimes things are there, but it is difficult to uh, release that information. So off the record information gives you idea that what is going to happen next. Sometimes you do not get that off the record information from your official channels. Contact outside the police force can just as valuable. The best are the people whose work or social life bring them together regular contact with crimes and criminals. Never waste an opportunity to encourage contacts. Regular visits or telephone calls reminds them that you are still interested. That means you need to maintain your contacts if you are a crime reporter, not only in the police, but outside the police station as well. So you could send them occasional greeting cards, SMS, WhatsApp messages, birthdays or festive occasions. If the context was their relationship with you to keep secret, respect their wishes, and do not let anyone know who your informant is, because no one can pressurize you to actually release the name of your source or your informant. So a few minutes spent talking to a pathologist at a scene of a murder could establish him as a future source of information, but about deaths and postmortems. So that means whenever you are reporting any crime incident, you are your first job is to report that incident, and your second job is to make more contacts out of that incident. So police contacts are important. You should get to know your local police well, SPs, DSPs, inspectors, sub-inspectors, constables. Make sure they know you and you know their names as well. Find out what their job and duties are within the force so that you can go directly to the right person when you need information. You need to have their phone numbers. Do not expect even the best of police contacts to go searching for you with the story ideas. Make regular visits or telephone calls at agreed times. You can send them SMS messages as well. That will remind you that you are out there. So the good crime reporter always spend the first part of any day ringing around and visiting contacts just to ask if anything is happening. But look, if you are sitting in the office, no one is going to come and give you a story. Uh, Literally, this is true. No one is going to give you a story. So whenever your working day starts, so you need to visit your contacts, you need to call them, and you need to look around at what is actually happening. The second half of the day, probably you are covering that story, but in this field, contexts are important. Police reports and press cards. In some countries, the police issue press cards to certain journalists, but nowadays in Pakistan, it is not happening. Uh, Police cards may give journalists a special access to different places. Police press conferences are very important. You need to attend them regularly. This is usually done through a regular daily or weekly press conference with a senior officer, at which journalists are told about crimes or developments which have happened since the last conference. So if you work for a newspaper or a television station, ask for pictures which will help or illustrate the story. Observation and monitoring. On the crime round, you must always be aware of what is happening and what is not uh, actually that is said. So, for example, if all of your contacts in police stations are suddenly unavailable when you call, you should suspect that something big is happening. And they actually do not want to release that information, and they do not want you to know what is happening. So in some countries, crime reporters are legally permitted to monitor the police radio using special scanners, um, which search the different wavebands for emergency service frequencies. But some years back in Pakistan, even our crime reporters were monitoring police frequencies. But I guess right now they are not monitoring police frequencies due to security reasons, and because in past 10, 15 years there are a lot of terrorist attacks. So um, now reporters are not monitoring police frequencies. You should take an interest in any document about the police or crime, their annual reports, if they release any press release. Keep a filing system. Crime reporters need a good system of filing information for future use. So this is especially important for stories which run for a long time, with occasional bursts of activity separated by long periods when nothing seems to happen. So you should monitor developments in the case and make diary notes of when future developments are likely to happen. So crime, what is the exact nature of the crime the police are investigating? You need to write it in your story when you are writing a crime story. You will also need to know exactly where and when the crime was committed, because if you remember 5 W's and 1 H formula, so obviously you need to write about the place. Even the crime of the day or the night, you should try to find out how it was committed. If the thieves have used a new and clever way of breaking into a building, you may give other criminals an idea by describing it exactly. So you need to look into that as well. The method the criminals used is often the most newsworthy aspect of the crime, even when it is not successful. You should, where possible, ask the valued of any things that have been stolen. Always ask whether a weapon was used, what kind of weapon was used, how it was used, and where they acquired that weapon. And do not forget to ask how the criminals traveled to and far from the crime scene. Victims and suspects, get as many details as possible about victims, about their age, where they're living, or their financial conditions. This should include their names, ages, and addresses as well, their occupation, and certainly details of any injuries they may suffer. Unusual circumstances. There may be some special circumstances which make the crime more newsworthy. For example, your intro may be that this is the fifth time that a certain office has been broken into in a month, or that the landlord is a cabinet minister, right? So sometimes there are special circumstances as well. Even you can run an appeal through from your newspaper as well, because the police will often ask for help from your readers or listeners, particularly in finding wanted men, stolen property, or getaway cars. You should try to cooperate with the police whenever it is possible, but make sure that you also get the information you want for your news as well. Quotes and actuality. If you are writing for a newspaper, get plenty of lively quotes to add interest into the story. If you are working for radio or television, record people talking about the crime. That means you need to take their thoughts. Do's and don'ts. In all the information you gather, you must always aim for accuracy, because you cannot compromise accuracy. Double check that you have understood what you were told and have made an accurate note. Cross check with another source if you have any doubts about information you have been given. You can often use reference book, maps, and directions for double checks. If the police says the company's head is in Mango Street, the telephone book should confirm it. All right. So you need to check the information. If you are told the getaway car was found in Place, 10 kilometers from the bank, you can check that distance on the map as well. So that's it for today. Obviously, we are going to meet again with another beat. So next time we are going to discuss religion reporting. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. Bye bye.